Welcome to Codex, History of Video Games. My name's Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta. That was the Numa Numa guy. Remember that?
Yeah, I think I've done it before on here, but I watched the music video for Pork and Beans, the Weezer song that came out. I mean, that song itself is like 15 years old now, but it was like, it sort of captured meme culture at the time, and Numa Numa guy was in it. Like, they found him and like got him to do stuff in the video. It's a really great video that was a little cringe back in the day, but like really fun to watch now. So I recommend it. Pork and Beans by Weezer. Watch the music video.
Dude, starting it off with a tangent. Hit the button. Yeah, I love it.
But this week we're going to talk about Kirby because we got a wonderful request to talk about Kirby games. So
I know, and I realized I didn't ask for permission to shout out the person who recommended it because they're not 18 years old, so I didn't ask them. So we got a really great listener request, and if you're listening to this, you know who you are, and we really appreciate your request. And we did really appreciate the request, and they made a good point. We haven't talked about Kirby, so today we're getting into the Kirby, the little pink puffball Kirby that we all know and love.
Kirby's a bit of a blind spot for me because I did not grow up playing Kirby games. Probably my first interaction with Kirby was like the original Super Smash Brothers. And even beyond that, I still haven't really done much with them.
Yeah, Kirby really is a blind spot for me as well. And I think that that really made it so this is going to be like a fun time for us to cover these episodes because it's been so long. And I never played these games. So it's fun. It's kind of fun. We both haven't done episodes, I think, on games that we both haven't played.
Yeah,
so it's probably like Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah, which we did play for that episode, and we played a bunch of Kirby games for this too. We're going to talk about a few different games.
Yeah. So we're going to talk today specifically about Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Adventure, and then Kirby's Dream Land 2. And I played Kirby's Dream Land and Kirby's Adventure, and I played a little bit of Kirby's Dream Land 2. But Tyler's our resident Kirby's Dream Land 2 expert is you.
Well, as much as I can be.
You're the resident expert. You put on the glasses and the jacket when you do your research.
That's true,
Kirby. It's true. But let's just start. Let's just get into it. Okay. So we're gonna start with Kirby's Dream Land. We're talking about the game that introduced us all to the adorable pink puffball Kirby that we know and love. So here come the grind.
He wasn't pink in that day.
He wasn't pink. It was monochrome.
We'll talk about that in a
Game Boy. We will. That's a fun fact too that I like. So Grind Facts is our developer is HAL Laboratory. The release date in Japan was April 27th, 1992. And then it came out in North America.
Japan's birthday. Oh, doxed him.
Dude, you just doxed Matt. Wow. I can't believe you would do that on the podcast. Just like right like that. Do we have a dox soundtrack button?
Dog.
Get doxed. So it came out in North America and the PAL region on August 1st and August 3rd, 1992, respectively. The systems was the Game Boy. It's the best way to play it now is probably on the Switch emulators. I full disclosure played it two different ways. I played it. Well, actually, no, Adventure I played two different ways. This one I played solely on my Mii Mini because it was a Game Boy game.
Yeah, me too.
It kind of fit with the holding the game Mii Mini. But for Adventure, I actually played it also. Ooh, there it is on the Switch emulator, which I have some things to talk about with Adventure specifically because it seems like whoever is using these ROMs for Kirby's Adventure, they're not that great compared to the ROMs that I was using for Dreamland 1 and 2. And we'll talk about that. I'll talk about it when we get there. So I don't know if it was just my experience.
But you did legally purchase the game, of course.
Of course, obviously. Yeah, I always buy physical copies. I'm out $1 million so far. So the number of copies sold that we know of, we actually have numbers for this. It's over 5 million copies. The genre or gameplay style is a platformer. This is the most platformer of platformers. I would describe this as a classic, beautiful, aged like a fine wine platformer. That's how I would describe this. The average time to complete is approximately 1 to 2 hours. I beat it with save states in under an hour. Not to say I'm the world's greatest gamer. I just cheated and used save states. So that's where I was at.
I think the 2 hour mark, and maybe more if you are less skilled or a younger player, it comes from just repeated playing, because if you die and get a game over, you have to start over from the very beginning. So it's a lot of like repetition of the first few levels until you're good enough to get to the later levels, like a lot of games in that day. So like a full playthrough, very fast. But to get good enough to be able to complete a full playthrough takes you some practice.
Exactly, yeah. But these games are really fun. And I encourage everyone to play these games, by the way, because I enjoyed all of them. The game ranking score was 62. Again, Game Rankings is pre-Metacritic. It's like their aggregate website. before Metacritic existed. So we use that for games like this. So Game Rankings has it as a 62. Pretty good score, above like middle ground. Not an amazing score though, which I found surprising. And I think I kind of know what people's qualms were with the game, and we'll kind of get to that maybe in the end of talking about this one. But the gameplay of Kirby's Dream Land is about as classic 90s platformer as you can get. As I said before, you control Kirby, a small round thing. I don't know what Kirby is. No one knows.
I don't think anybody knows.
No one knows. I think that's part of the appeal. And Kirby's big ability is they can inhale enemies and objects and then spit them back out at people, right? And Kirby can also inflate themselves to float in the air like a balloon. So what's kind of cool about the Kirby game is that you have a flying ability that you can just use. It's not like a power up. You can fly across the whole map. If you want
And
to.
there really aren't many like limitations with it, right? It's just and it actually gives you an attack because you can blow that air bubble back
You
out
can.
as an attack. So I think that's kind of a cool thing that it did differently from other platformers, because lots of platformers you're like vertically challenged and like trying to figure out how to get up to something. You don't have to. In Kirby, the game is not designed that way.
Yeah,
Cool.
you can actually fly all over the map if you want to. And it was
Yeah.
very intentionally designed that way too. You're right. So this was the first Kirby game. So Kirby didn't have the power to copy abilities of enemies. We'll get to that in the next game, Kirby's Adventure. But there are 5 levels filled with various enemies, bosses, and power-ups you can get. Almost all the bosses involve dodging an attack and then sucking up an object they throw at you to shoot back at them. But it's a very basic concept, but it's fun. Like, it's just a fun thing to do. Like, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time fighting all the bosses, except for King DDD, because King DDD, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And then I had to actually watch a video to see. And I realized it's a lot harder to see on the original Game Boy because there's no colors.
Mm-hmm.
The stars, this is spoilers to an ancient game, everybody. Stars that come out when King DDD hits the ground are yellow, and you can suck up the stars that come from his drop attack and then spit those back at him. That's what you're supposed to do. And I didn't know that. So I was like, how do I fight this guy? And I couldn't tell on a Game Boy screen because there's no color. So
How would you have known that back in the day? Like
I never would have known that. I don't know. I don't know how people figure out. People are so smart, Tyler. They're so good, so pure gamers.
And that's
Those
part
guys.
of that. It adds to the runtime. When you get to
Mhm.
that final boss and it takes you 2-3 tries to even know how to harm the
Mhm.
final boss, and then you got to start the whole game over again.
We leave it up to the heroes who made ASCII guides on Game Facts. Those
That's
are the
right.
real heroes.
And this predates even those. This game predates the World Wide Web.
Oh man, it's crazy. There are also power-ups that give you health back. There's like a Mario tomato with an M on it.
The Maxim tomato.
It's a Maxim tomato, but I always called it Mario tomatoes when I was a kid. So I'm going to do that on here. And then there's like a little water bottle that gives you a little health back too. My favorite power up is the spicy food, though, because you eat the spicy food and then you just start spitting stuff constantly. And it's really cool. And there's actually some bosses that use that spicy food as a mechanic, which I think is kind of neat. So that's pretty fun. The other thing I actually didn't write in here that I probably should have is you have a heads up display. And unlike Mario, where you have like the mushroom system of like big Mario, little Mario, you're dead, there's a health bar. Kirby has health in this. So you have to watch Kirby's hit points. And then also on top of that, you watch enemy hit points as well. Like the bosses have hit points, so you can see their progress bar as you shoot them and see if what you're doing is working, essentially, which I thought was
good to
cool.
have that feedback, because sometimes games back in those days didn't have great feedback on whether or not you're actually doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm,
and especially with the bosses in this game have big old health bars. That's like, it actually kind of takes a little while to whittle some of them down. So, or maybe I'm just bad. But
no, I mean, is this the early Dark Souls? I think we can say it is. This is
Kirby, very first Dark Souls, probably.
Kirby's the first Dark Souls, probably. Everyone knows that. Okay, so the plot is, I just picture me putting that clip on TikTok and people getting really mad at us. Okay, so the plot is basic but pretty straightforward. The inhabitants of Dreamland are left hungry after King DDD and his minions take all the food. So it's up to Kirby to travel across the land, defeat DDD's henchmen, and restore the stolen food for his fellow Dreamlanders, of the people of Dreamlanders. So I thought this plot was like very basic, but also that's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need for this. It's kind of perfect. The one thing that I'm kind of confused about is when you beat a stage, 3 Kirbys pop up and start dancing. So is Kirby like a species of creature, or is Kirby, our Kirby, a hero?
I don't know. Or is it a stylization thing that we're just, Kirby's so happy there's 3 of them now to do a
Maybe
dance?
Can Kirby clone themselves? Is Kirby I mean, Tyler and I are big fans of Brian David Gilbert. I think we can say that safely on this
Mhm.
podcast. Brian David Gilbert used to work at Polygon, and while he was there, he did a series called Unraveled, and he has an Unraveled episode about what Kirby is, and you just slowly get to watch someone go insane for like 30 minutes. And I highly recommend everyone watch it. It's really funny. It's great too. He does a bunch of stuff that's really great. So check that out. Little random tangent shout out there. But let's get into the development of the original Kirby. And most of my facts came from two different sources. There is actually an interview that was originally in the Japanese strategy guide of Kirby's Adventure. That's the next game we're talking about, that talks about some of the stuff in Kirby's Dream Land. And then on top of that, and this is really unique too, we rarely get this. Masahiro Sakurai, who is the creator of Kirby, has a YouTube channel called Masahiro Sakurai on Creating Games, where he talks about the development of his most famous games. So there's an episode where he talks about the origins of Kirby and where Kirby came from. So we have firsthand knowledge of the history of Kirby, which I feel like we don't really get that much.
No, that's really cool.
And I think it's because Kirby and like Mario, those are so heavily documented, like those kind of characters, because they're so iconic that it's really nice to have that kind of stuff. So let's just get into it right now. So Kirby's Dream Land was developed by HAL Laboratory, as I said, and directed by Masahiro Sakurai, the goal of Kirby's Dream Land was to create a game that would be accessible to players of all skill levels. And since the game was designed for the Game Boy, making it portable and easy to pick up to play was super important to them. And I think we can all agree that in that first Kirby's Dream Land, if you played it, they nailed it. They did a pretty good job, right? So Kirby's basic shape was even to make it more accessible. He's just a circle. And Sakurai thought people could draw Kirby in their notebook, which is
First
why
you
he
draw a
did it.
circle.
First you draw a circle. Yeah. That's like the whole story of how to draw him. So that's there too. The Kirby was also, since he was monochrome for the Game Boy, not known as pink until Kirby's Adventure came out.
Even
So
on the cover of Kirby's Dream Land, he's like kind of like white colored,
yeah,
not pink.
yeah, he's not pink. He's not pink. That does not happen until the next game, Kirby's Adventure. Kirby's name in testing, because I was really curious about this, like where did they find the name Kirby from? And the testing name was Twinkle Popo, which is an adorable name, if you ask me, for Kirby. But
Mhm.
it was changed to Kirby after that was one of the names recommended by Nintendo of America. So Nintendo of America sent a bunch of different recommendations to try to make the game more accessible to like a North American audience, right? And Kirby was the one they chose. We don't have a lot of other ones, but I know one of them, as confirmed by the interview, was Gasper, which sounds like a Pokemon. If
Yeah,
anything.
kind of. I just did a quick Google to figure this out because I wanted to know if he was named after the vacuum because he sucks in and vacuums do that also. He was named after John Kirby, the lawyer that defended Nintendo in their lawsuit against Universal Studios, the King Kong stuff.
That's
So
right.
He really came through for them, and they named a character after him. We talked about that, I think.
We talked about that 100% on Ultimate History Video Games, and I didn't put that in here. So that's why you're here, Tyler.
I
You
forgot.
fact
I
checked me.
just did a
Hey,
quick Google.
good job. Worth a Google. Okay. So yeah, Kirby was chosen, and I think we all agree that Kirby's better than Gasper. I think we all won there.
Mm-hmm.
So Kirby's abilities also came again from making the game more accessible. This is from that interview, and this is Satoru Iwata, who was also in the interview on Kirby. It says, quote, "We came up with a lot of ideas, and one that stuck was flying. How would Kirby fly? By puffing up like a balloon. How would he do that? By inhaling the air. Wouldn't it be fun then if he could inhale enemies at the same time? That was the basic thought process." End quote. So flight was actually the first part of it, and then it kind of slowly became what Kirby is today. So I'm going to say that the too long didn't read of Kirby, if you were really trying to do that, and if you're listening to this podcast, you're not, because we're not doing things quick. But one of the big reasons Kirby's Dream Land is so basic as a platformer is it was marketed as a universal game, and it was designed with that intention. And that achieved their goal in doing that, but there were also some criticisms of Kirby's Adventure because it was so, or Kirby's Dream Land, sorry, because it was so short, and it was only 5 levels. Like, it's a very short game, and that was something they kept in mind when they moved on to the next iteration of Kirby for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and that was Kirby's Adventure. Are you ready, Tyler? You all caught up with
Oh, I'm
Kirby's
ready.
Dream Land?
Yep. Kirby's Dream Land, super fun, very short, kind of a nice little, almost proof of concept, right? Like, hey,
Exactly.
people like this character.
Almost a prototype even. You can go so
Yeah,
far as to say
yeah.
a prototype, but it's got more than a prototype in it also. So Kirby's Adventure was released by HAL Laboratory once again on May 1st, 1993. That's right, less than a year or after the release of the first game, which is pretty crazy. And we'll talk about why that is in a second. That was from the Nintendo Entertainment System. The best way to play is you can play this on Nintendo Switch's online emulator, and that's how I played it. We'll talk about the emulator now because it is not great looking. Like there's a white bar on the left side of the screen that's like stuck there all the time. And I
Mm.
noticed this with my emulator on my Miu Mini as well because I tested a bunch of them just to see. And I think that's just the way the game is emulated. Like they don't have it the full screen the right
There's
way.
there is sort of a thing about NES games where oftentimes on one side of the screen there's like some weirdness going on. There's a technical explanation for it that I don't know of, but on the NES itself does it too. It's just the NES was always played on like a CRT TV that has overscan, so that part was always covered up
Oh,
by
because
the
I'm putting it
TV.
in widescreen. That's probably why. Okay.
Yeah, well,
So
and there's just no overscan even if you're playing it in 4:3 on your Switch. There's no overscan, so it's not covering it up.
Well, good to know, Tyler. Thank you for sharing that. Look at us learning things today. So the number of copies sold was around 1.75 million copies, is what we have for that. I don't know exactly how accurate that number is, though. Again, when we do these sales figures, we're kind of all just close. We're never going to find the exact number. So the genre gameplay style, once again, a platformer. This time to beat, though, is around 4 to 5 hours, according to How Long to Beat. That sounds about right to me, just based on me playing it.
Is there more levels, a little bit
There's
longer?
way more levels. It's a longer game, yeah, for sure. And the Metacritic score was, well, this would be game rankings again. I'm sorry, I forgot to change it. Is 80 for the NAS. So it's more well received than Kirby's Dream Land. And I would agree that this game is just an improvement all around. So let's get into it. The Kirby's Adventure is very similar to the original Kirby's Dream Land, but this game expanded on the gameplay of the original and introduced Kirby's famous power to copy enemy abilities when you inhale them. So you inhale an enemy, you press the down button on the D-pad, and then in the bottom right of the screen, it has this little power box and it'll tell you what power you have. So it's kind of fun if you don't know the powers to like experiment by eating monsters and like hitting the down button to see if it does anything. Because some monsters you eat them and nothing happens. It just says nothing. So
You
that's
got to try it on all of them.
exactly. And some of those abilities that Kirby can have include having a sword, a cutter, a hammer, a spark, a stone power where they turn into stone, and a parasol. You'll notice a lot of these are Super Smash Brothers moves as
Mm-hmm.
well. So if you hit down and B, I believe that's how you turn into a stone on if you did that on the N64 version of Super Smash Brothers. But my personal favorites are Flames, Laser, and the Wheel. Because the wheel is fun because you just become a wheel that shoots across the screen and slams into whatever is there. I think it's pretty cool. So I I think it's I'm wondering if this is something like I noticed as well in the two emulators. They were slightly different. Like the version of the game I was playing on the Switch Online felt much more polished than the version I was playing
Hmm.
on like my Miu Mini. And I don't know if that was just like a version difference because I think the one I was playing was the player select version on the Nintendo Switch.
Mm.
And I think that is like a little bit better. So
It's a
keep that
little
in
some
mind.
bug
I
fixes,
would
a little bit
just
smoother.
if you have a Nintendo Switch Online, I would just play it on those emulators. And I think you can play any of these games on those emulators. So it's definitely worth going for. So players explore 7 worlds, each with multiple levels. And it's not always the same level, too. Like I think the first world has like 4 or 5 stages, and the second one has like 7. So it kind of like jumps up and down. The you collect stars this time, so that's something that's additional to the game. You can collect stars inside the levels and get 1-ups once you hit 7, I believe, and you battle bosses and stuff the same way. The game is really overall an expansion of the first game, as I said before, but there's so much more to it. So there's an overworld in the game, and this is something that I love, and it unlocks as you go. And the overworld, if we're going to compare it to say Super Mario Brothers 3, where you have this top down and you just move Mario along a map, the overworld in Kirby is still platforming. You're platforming from door to door. So it's like an extended extension of the levels, essentially, is how the overworld works, which I think is way more fun and just makes it a little more interesting. The big upgrade to me in Kirby's Adventure are the mini games. Did you get a chance to try Kirby's Adventure out?
Yeah, I played some of the mini games. Those are fun.
The mini games are so fun. So I really enjoy the crane game because it's just like when I was a kid, I loved the crane game at like Fred Meyer or the Denny's and stuff. I'm hitting some real Northwest references here. But the other cool games they have on there's one called Draw, where you like draw a pistol and shoot a punching bag out of a pistol at an enemy before they do it to you. It's kind of fun and it gets harder and harder. And then there's also a game where you press and hold A and Kirby's mouth opens and you want to catch the eggs in Kirby's mouth, but then King DDD is throwing bombs also, and you want to close your mouth when the bomb comes along. So it's like a score you get from that too. There's a couple other little mini games in there as well. Like there's these little rooms that you go into, and I don't know if it was the version I'm playing that have a power up, kind of similar to when you'd go into like a Mario world that has power ups for you to grab. This one would have like a sword guy in it that you could suck up and eat so you could get the sword powers. That's kind of how they did that there, which is really cool. Okay. Next up, we got I got distracted here because it is storming outside. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I just turned and I saw like a bunch of wind and I'm like, oh no, hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully by the power of Kirby, we'll keep it so my power stays on. Okay. So I would think of Dreamland though. I would think of Kirby's Adventure as Dreamland with updates is how I would look at it as well. And with the power ability, it just makes the game way more open, way more fun because you can select the abilities. And again, the laser is cool because you can shoot it off of angled plates and hit stuff, which I just thought was they just expanded so much on it. And a lot of this was because of criticism. Like people loved the first Kirby's Dream Land, but they didn't like how short it was and how simple it was. And so they really elaborated and made this game way more than it should have been, I think. Because originally, and we'll talk about this in the development, Nintendo just wanted it ported over. And then they did so much more than a straight port. So we'll get into that after the plot. So in Kirby's Adventure, Kirby has to restore pieces of the Star Rod, which has been stolen by King DDD and scattered across the Dreamland. The Star Rod is a source of power for something called the Fountain of Dreams, which is also a level in Super Smash Brothers.
The Star Rod is also an item in Smash Brothers.
It is. Yeah, it's right. And without the Fountain of Dreams and the Star Rod, the inhabitants of like Dreamland can't dream, which is a problem because it's called Dreamland, right? So Kirby sets out to retrieve the pieces and restore peace to Dreamland and fix the fountain. There is a plot twist, I'm going to say, like a little mini twist, but I don't know. Do people care about spoilers to a game this old? Do people care?
I want to hear the spoiler.
You want to hear the spoiler? Okay, if you have a spoiler, if you're worried about spoilers, skip 30 seconds in 3, 2, 1, skip. Okay, so apparently King DDD is not the real bad guy. There's actually a thing called Nightmare. That's the bad guy. It's like a secret bad guy. And King DDD stealing the Star Rod only kind of helped Nightmare out. So at the end of the game, you have to go fight Nightmare with the Star Rod.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Spoiler over, everybody. But we got there. So hopefully you skipped that and didn't hear about it. Okay. So let's get into the development of this. I really use the YouTube channel on this the most, the Masahiro Sakurai on Creating Games YouTube channel, because he's got a whole episode on Kirby's Adventure. So we got into it there. And I know people are like, probably want us to like go through documents and books. I would rather use a video from the creator. That seems like a way more reasonable resource. So I'm going to do that instead. So let's talk about what happened with this, because you'll notice that the game comes out less than a year after Kirby's Dream Land is released. Essentially what happened is Sakurai was asked to make a port of Kirby's Dream Land for the NES at a time when Nintendo was straight up about to go bankrupt. Like, this is Nintendo. Yeah, apparently Nintendo actually had seized stickers on their PCs.
I want to know more about that period of time. How are in the NES and SNES era, Nintendo's about to go bankrupt?
Yeah, that's what I read from this thing, from this, unless I misread it and it's HAL Laboratory specifically.
That makes more sense. I feel like Nintendo has not really ever been close to bankruptcy.
Well, they were, because remember when we talked about the history of Nintendo from Florent Gorget's book, and they were doing some real dicey business decisions in
well, but like,
do I need to bring up the love hotels again?
That was way before though. I'm in the modern era of Nintendo. I don't think they.
Okay, I'm sorry I brought that up on the Kirby episode. This children listening, but You gotta look it up for me. Okay, maybe it was HAL Laboratory. I don't know, but the point is that they were going through some financial strains, so they needed to put Kirby's Adventure out. So planning began on Kirby's Adventure in 1992, and you'll notice the dates don't really add up here, as the Super Famicom version was already out in Japan at this time. Like, why would you make an NES game when the Super Famicom is out, right? Because if you notice, like, Super Famicom is the most up-to-date hardware. You should make a Kirby game on that. The reason is this: NES games were quicker and cheaper to develop, and Nintendo needed cash, and this was how they did it. This was like Kirby's Adventure.
It was HAL Laboratory that was in
It
trouble.
was HAL Laboratory. Okay, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got that wrong. I'm glad it's called corrections. Okay, that's what we did. Do we have a corrections button? We should
No.
Corrections and apologies. That's what it should be. So HAL Laboratory was in financial trouble, and putting out a game on the NES is what would essentially make it so that they can get cash really quickly, right? Because that's what they need. Did HAL make Super Smash Brothers also?
Yes.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Okay, so it's essentially putting it out on NES made it so they could make a game quickly and cheaply. And it's kind of funny then, because they made this game so fast, but they made it really good still by having all this stuff. So Sakurai also thought, and he mentioned this in the video, that the NES market was more mature at this point. I'm putting it in quotes there. And it's not as in they're like an older people, but they're a more experienced gamers. These are people that have owned a gaming system.
They've gotten good.
Oh yeah, they got good. So that's kind of where he thought he would add the new gameplay mechanic of taking enemy abilities, because while the gameplay mechanic of taking enemy abilities is new, it's not that hard to grasp too. So it's just more for both people. Again, trying to make it universal. So here's another quote from Sakurai. Quote, Kirby was originally designed to be a somewhat easy game, something that a young child could enjoy playing. However, after the Game Boy Kirby's Dream Land was released, there was a lot of feedback from players saying it was, quote, too easy and too short. For the sequel, I was thinking, how can I retain the easy parts, but make it so skilled players could have fun too? That was when the idea of copying enemy abilities came to me, end quote. And that's actually from that interview about Kirby's Adventure in the strategy guide, that quote right there. That's where that's from. So Iwata says that in that interview, there were originally, and this is kind of crazy, 40 versions, like 40 different abilities, 40 enemies you could suck up and take their powers.
Wow.
In the end, it was 24, but it's pretty crazy that they made that many powers and had to like cut some out. So fun fact also, I have a couple fun facts about Kirby's Adventure here too. Kirby looks so small on the NES version compared to the Game Boy because they have different screen sizes, but Kirby was left the same size. So he's the same size, same pixel count, but he's just tinier because he does look noticeably smaller on the NES version of that. The other thing that I thought was really cool is flight was actually almost taken out of the game. They almost
Adventure.
removed
That's like
it.
Wow.
But they decided to keep it in because they were worried about balance, is what they were talking about, because there are some levels in Kirby's Adventure you can just fly through. You could just fly through the whole thing and not kill any enemies.
You just do the Mario P-Wing, like fly over the whole level.
Exactly. But the way they balanced it is you'll notice some boss fights in Kirby's Adventure have the screen like halved. Like you'll notice a bit of ground below you, like the bottom half of the screen, and only the top half is like a little bit to move around in. That's how they got out of you flying out of the way. Because in the first Kirby, in Kirby's Dream Land, it's really easy to fly into the corner of the King DDD fight and not get hit by anything. So that's kind of something they had going on there too. All right. So the other, that was kind of all I had for the development of Kirby's Adventure. What do you think, Tyler? Do we keep, we're at 30 minutes. Do we play 20 questions and come back and talk Kirby's Dreamland next week? Dreamland 2 next week?
Kirby Dreamland 2. I could go either way. 20 questions sounds fun. I did have a 20 questions ready to go for our last episode, the Xbox 360 episode that I thought would be really fun. So we could do that, or we can go on to Kirby's Dreamland 2.
Well, we did Kirby. If we did the 20 questions now, that means next week we do Kirby's Dreamland 2 and Kirby's Dreamland 3.
Yeah, let's save it because Kirby's Dreamland 2 is like a pretty big upgrade.
It's a big upgrade. Yeah. So, and we're going to keep going with this series. It's not just going to be one part of Kirby.
We got some more Kirby games to cover. So
yeah, we'll have to talk about it because next week I'm gone. I'm on.
Oh, okay.
I'm out of town for a comedy, so I'm gone
Okay.
all weekend. But it might be a re-release next week, everybody. But let's play 20 questions.
Well, I'll hit the 20 questions button. Also, we get to use our new 20 questions button.
I'm ready. So ready.
20 questions.
Yeah.
That was really good. That was really rock and roll. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm guessing,
You're guessing. Yes.
and I know this video game.
Yeah, I think so. Wait,
Okay.
is that your first question?
No, don't do that.
But I did pick it. So I think it is helpful. The context is I did pick this when we were doing the Xbox 360 episode. So with that, do that with that information, what you will. But when I decided on the game, it was with that context that we had already been talking about the Xbox 360. So
I have a tally counter here.
okay.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Was this game made for Xbox 360 exclusively?
Yeah. I actually don't know. I guess technically no.
Was it okay, technically no. Okay, that's my first question. Is it a first-person shooter?
No.
Is it an RPG?
Nope.
Is it a franchise?
Yes,
As in
it
multiple
is.
sequels.
It was not a. Well, I can't. No. In that case, if that is the question, did it have sequels? No.
Thinking about games that are not sequels, and there's one in my mind, but I can't remember if it's on the original Xbox or Xbox 360. I'm gonna take a shot in the dark because I think this is original Xbox, but is it Brute Force?
It is not Brute Force. That is an original Xbox game.
I wasted a question. Remember Brute Force though? That was such a silly. That was like that's gonna be the next big game. It's not a franchise. No.
It did not have sequels. It
did not have sequels. Okay, it did not have sequels. Doesn't mean it's not a franchise, and it's on Xbox 360. It's not a shooter, and it's not an RPG.
I don't think it had sequels.
Okay, he's looking right now, everybody. Is it from the third person perspective?
No.
Is it multiplayer?
Yes.
Okay, so it's multiplayer game on the Xbox 360. That was not from the third person perspective. RPG, not an RPG, not a first person shooter. So it would not be a third person shooter too by asking if it was a third person perspective. So it wouldn't be that. Is it involve racing?
Nope. No, it does not.
Man, that's like big. Is it a fighting game?
Nope.
People are like, Mike, these are terrible guesses. You shouldn't be asking
No,
questions.
these are good guesses. If you're trying to narrow it down.
Narrow down.
The audience doesn't know either. Yet.
It's true. They know. They're screaming it right now into the microphone, into their microphones on their phones. It's really annoying for whoever's listening. Not an RPG, not first person, not third person shooter, not racing. I'm trying to think of other genres, but it's multiplayer. Is this a party game?
Yeah, you could say that.
Do they have a Fusion Frenzy on Xbox 360?
Is that a question?
No, I mean, that's not a yes or no question. That's me thinking out loud. Sorry. Is it Fusion Frenzy?
No. There was not a Fusion Frenzy on Xbox 360.
No, I should have trusted my gut. It's a party game, though. Oh. Is it 1 versus 100?
No. But that would have been a good choice.
Oh.
That was cool. I remember 1 versus 100. That was cool.
That was, to date myself, if you don't know, everyone, 1 versus 100 was an Xbox Live. We should do an episode on this. It was an Xbox Live game show that actually came out around 2009, 2010, because it was right as I was graduating college. And I actually met with a Microsoft executive for like one of those future like career day kind of things to talk to them about video game stuff. And it was the big thing they were pushing was 1 versus 100, and then it got canceled shortly thereafter. But it was a really cool idea, super cool. Okay, so not 1 versus 100, a party game. Is it Jackbox?
No.
Was there a Jackbox on the Xbox 360?
I don't think so. There were probably some You Don't Know Jack games, but I don't think Jackbox was.
Party game. Xbox 360. Not third person, not fighting, not racing.
I guess Jackbox was on 360. Well, it's not Jackbox.
Hey, that means my guess wasn't in vain, so that's good. I'll take that. I guess I'll try to go off theming now since I don't really know. Is it themed with famous video game characters from other games?
No.
Okay. That was my 14th question, everybody, to give you a countdown. I was really hoping it was 1 versus 100, and I just nailed it with question 10. I thought that'd been really cool.
That would have been.
That would have been everyone would have been like, "Wow, that Mike guy is really cool." That would be the first time that would have happened. Okay. Party game. Have we played this game before?
We have not.
Oh, man.
Well, I don't. But maybe we've played.
I meant together. I meant together.
No, we have not.
That's what I meant together. Okay. Dude, there was a really weird, and this is super obscure. There was a party game on the Xbox 360 I played where you were at a party and you were all disguised, and you had it's an Xbox arcade game. You had to guess each other, and to pretend you were you would pretend you were an NPC essentially. And I hope it's not that game because I have no idea what the name of that game is. So I hope it's not that.
Here's a freebie. It's not that one.
Okay, good. It's not that one. So that's good. Dude, I'm sitting here thinking about party games. Is it a music game?
Nope.
I'm at 16 questions now. Did it use the Kinect?
It did not use the Kinect.
This is a good one. This is really good. Did I get stumped last time too? I think I did.
I don't know.
I think I did. This is an interesting one. So I'm just going to keep talking about my thought process here while I do this, while I'm trying to think it out, because this helps to think out loud. So it's going to be, I'm leaning towards something that came out on Xbox Arcade, because that feels like something like a party game like that would have been a big thing for Xbox Arcade. But my knowledge to that is fairly limited.
You can ask that question if you want confirmation.
Yeah, did it come out on Xbox Arcade?
Yes.
Okay. Party game. Xbox
I should say it did have sequels technically. So yeah, I don't know if that helps or not, but it did.
It doesn't really help anyway. I'm shooting in the dark here, dude. I'm trying to think about party games, and I'm wondering if I ever played this. Party game, Xbox Arcade. Is it Peggle?
No.
Oh,
You're starting to get a little closer.
that was really cool, though, right? If it was,
Yeah, Peggle was cool.
Peggle was really fun. You're like, actually, it was Peggle too. No. I have one guess left on this. I'm on my last question now, and it's not Peggle.
I'll give you hints after 20 because I think we could get there.
We can get there. Okay, we'll play like I've lost, but then we can get there. So,
yeah.
Party game, Xbox 360, arcade, not Peggle. Would you count Peggle as a party game? I guess I could. Not really. It's just a multiplayer game.
Yeah, I don't know if I count it as a party game.
I keep in my head, I keep thinking the game Trials, but that's not a party game. That was a fun arcade game, though. That was a really fun Xbox arcade game. This is gonna make me so mad when I don't know what it is. Well, not really mad, but you know what I mean. I guess I should get more fired up for views, right? I should get really angry. Like I think if you get angry for stuff, it really helps. It's not really a party game and it's not third person, but I'm gonna be remiss if I didn't guess this and I was wrong. Is it Minecraft?
No.
Okay, so that was my 20th question.
Okay, so the hint is it's a card game.
It's a card game. A card game on the Xbox 360.
On the arcade.
On the Xbox 360 arcade, a card game that came out. Is it Gwent?
No.
That's a deep pull. Is it...
I don't think Gwent came out on 360.
Is it the World Series of Poker game?
No, it's not. Those are great. Those are fun games. I had that for PS2. It was really fun.
Yeah, I had a World Series of Poker game for original Xbox. I actually really enjoyed it. A card game on Xbox 360. Hearthstone didn't come out on 360, did it? No.
I'll give you another hint.
Yes.
This is a game that has a physical version that most people are very familiar with.
Oh, is this the it's like apples to apples, but it's not apples to apples. What's the name of it? It's the one.
It's not that. Whatever you're thinking of, it's not that.
It's not that?
No.
Is it Settlers
Cards
of
Against
Catan?
Humanity?
Yeah, it's not. Oh, is it Uno?
Yes.
Ooh, this is hard.
Uno was the game because I remember it being like really popular on the arcade, like at the very beginnings of the arcade.
I never played that. I never even knew there was an Uno.
The Kinect question was interesting because it was famous for using the Xbox Live Vision camera, which is not the Kinect. It's just a webcam like the PS2 iToy, you know? So technically not Kinect, but did use the Xbox 360 camera.
That's great because that's like a very distinct thing for 360 that if you were into, you probably loved Uno because Uno is still hopping game.
It was one of the like most fun games in the early days of the Xbox Live Arcade because it came out in 2006. So it was like really early. It was like less than a year into the Xbox 360. So it was like really cool because it had great graphics and it was like the effects were all cool and it was multiplayer online and it was a good time. And then of course people were doing inappropriate things with the camera. So that
I think two things. I lost fair and square, but I also think I really showed my nerd card by pulling out some really deep pulls.
I agree.
So I feel good about myself. Tyler, what you been playing this week?
This week I finished Super Mario RPG. Since the last time we talked, I finished it like a week ago, but we haven't had an episode. So I finished Super Mario RPG, loved it. Probably took me 12 hours, 13 hours. By the in-game timer, it probably took me 15 or 16 if we're going by real life timer because if you lose and go back. I had a few fights that I lost a bunch of times. I spent a couple hours and it didn't reflect in the playtime. Other than that, I've been checking out the alpha for a game called Fellowship. We checked that out. I don't know how much we're supposed to be able to say about it.
What's really funny is I was about to ask you on my turn if we could talk about that because I don't know. But I think
I don't know what the rules are. So anyway, that's a game that is known that it is in alpha. So we played that.
We played Fellowship, everybody. We're not going to talk about it, but it seems pretty cool. We'll say that.
Yeah.
We can say that legally. I think that we like their game.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I haven't played Destiny in a while.
Me neither.
And so I think, but what I'm going to move on to is I want to get back to trying to finish Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope because I'm like probably halfway through. I'm 19% by the in-game counter, but I'm also 7.5 hours in, which makes me think that I'm just trying to get through the story. So it's probably not a like when you're done with the story, you've hit 100%. It's probably you done with the story, you hit 40% kind of thing.
Yeah. That game's, I mean, Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. We talked about that. We talked about that a lot. We love that game.
Sparks of Hope is fun. So I think that's kind of it. I've been messing around with a lot of games. I installed SteamOS on my handheld, so I've been like just playing with stuff to see how well they run, and it's pretty cool. So yeah, nice. I think that's it. What have you been playing?
Well, I started a Minecraft realm. I'm paying for a realm, as in I bought one 2 months ago, forgot about it, and I finally started playing it. So that's how I live my life. I do want to talk to you about it because you've offered to host a server of Minecraft.
Yeah.
And I think that because you have a server, Tyler's a very technical person, everybody. He knows a lot about stuff. He knows a lot about things.
I got a little server rack in my closet.
Yeah. And so it would be cool to, as an experiment, do a Minecraft server that you have. I think that'd be kind of neat to see.
Yeah. Is there a way to copy the files over from what you
I
guys already have?
believe I
We could do
can. I
that. Yeah.
believe that I should be able to copy it over because we're playing on the Java edition to use realms. Because my friends and I, we're going to use texture packs too and stuff. And if in order to do that, you have to like use the Java version because the Windows version that comes on Xbox is just so enveloped in microtransactions. It's pretty crazy. But I do think it's been really fun. I've been digging it again. I just forgot how fun Minecraft is to just turn a podcast on and just kind of relax too. And that's kind of how I've been playing it. And it's really nice. I played Fellowship with you. Big fan of that. I haven't played Destiny also, but I do want to try to like beat Tears of the Kingdom. I still haven't done it, man. And I need to just do it. And I think that'll be kind of something I play this week because I was playing Kirby though. And I was really having fun playing those Kirby games this week. Like I had a really good time. So that was a fun time, and I played most of that. That's really the main games I played this week was Kirby. So I had a good time with that. But yeah,
Nice.
that was a fun episode today, Tyler. So we'll do Kirby's Dream Land 2 next, and I think Kirby's Dream Land 3. We didn't cover like Kirby Pinball. Is that something that people want? If you want us to cover those Kirby games that are not necessarily like the platformers, let us know. Send us an email. Tell us on Discord because we really don't know what you want us to do or not. If you want us to keep going with this and just do that. I was thinking we would just do the platformers. So I skipped Pinball, which I believe came out in between Adventure and Kirby's Dream Land 2. So we could do that next week if people want. It's a pinball game. I don't know much more than that, but I know that. So we'll kind of go from there. But that you could follow us on Discord. You can go to codexpodcast.net. That has all of our links on there, our Discord, our Trello boards, our Twitters, everything. Go there at Codex Podcast on Instagram. And with that, Tyler, do you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Goodbye, everybody.